Hello and welcome to FranklinCovey's On Leadership series. I'm Scott Miller. I serve as your host each week. You probably noticed that our setting is a bit different than our usual interview. Today, I am honored to be with Rachel Hollis at our headquarters down in Austin, Texas, the author of numerous books, including, as you know, Girl Wash Your Face, sold 4 million copies, followed up by Girl, Stop Apologizing. Haven't gotten into this yet, but I'm loving Girl Wash Your Face. Rachel Hollis, welcome to On Leadership.
Thank you for having me.
I should say welcome to me because I'm in your headquarters here in Austin with your team this morning.
Yeah.
What a great environment.
So grateful to have
Love
you.
your background.
Yes,
Tell me about this.
Okay, so my dream here was that we were going to fill all of these with my dream podcast guests.
Okay.
Only the team told me I couldn't.
Is that a picture of me right there?
Yes, it is. This is you. But the team told me I couldn't put pictures up because there are legal rights to putting a
People
photo.
own their images.
So then I'm having my children one by one create my dream. So we've got Kevin Hort, which is supposed to be Kevin Hart,
Yep.
The Rock, and Dolly Parton.
It's awesome.
I do have some non-celebrity dream guests, but they just want to focus in on the ones.
This
that
is
they
your
know.
legal dream list.
This is my
That's
legal
true.
dream list.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'm honored to be with your team today.
Yeah.
I'm delighted you're on our podcast. You've told me some things off air that just blow my mind. Tell me a bit about what this book has done. In addition to being a #1 New York Times bestseller, it was your 6th book.
Yeah,
Your
sixth
first
book.
ever nonfiction book.
Yep.
You're really a fiction writer.
Yes.
And amongst other things,
Yeah.
mom and wife.
In my heart. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think the world really wants me to be a fiction writer, but I really like it.
This book came out when?
So this came out March of 2018.
Right, so just a year ago. And it swept the nation by storm.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you mentioned it was what number of all books sold?
It was the second best-selling book of 2018 after Michelle Obama.
Okay, let that sit for a moment.
I do.
You have authored the second best-selling book of 2018 after our nation's former first lady.
Yeah.
Why? Why has it done so well?
So my gut says it's because, I was telling you this before we started, every single thing we do at Hollis Co. is a request from our customer. So I have been in relationship with these women for 15 years. Like I have had an online community, even when it was, 10 women and 3 of them were related to me. I have been in relationship with these women for years and years and years. And every single product that we have here, and we only have 4, we'll have some more in the new year, but we only have 4, are all things that she has asked us to do. This book has 20 chapters. It's the 20 lies I used to believe. And all 20 chapters were the questions I got most often from people all around the world. Things like body image, or feeling like a bad mom, or feeling like you should have achieved more, or whatever. And so I took that information and started to write about my own experiences with them. And that's what the book is.
I mean, this is a masterpiece. I have enjoyed it. And there's a reason why it sold so many, because it's so relatable, it's vulnerable, it's real, it's practical, no pretenses. I think everyone knows the name now, Rachel Hollis. You have to be like out of the country somewhere, although your brand is pretty big internationally. Tell us about your journey, because I don't think everybody knows. As we talked offline, you've not been an overnight success.
No.
You and your husband have toiling it.
Yeah.
Walk us through some of your journey personally and professionally so people can appreciate you didn't just burst from the seam one night with a best-selling book.
So I actually, my first business was I owned an event planning company in LA. I had come to LA 17 years old and got a job as an assistant, was able to learn how to do event planning. I worked in the entertainment industry. And so I was helping, assisting at a press junket or a premiere, or, I know Salt Lake very well because I did the Sundance Film Festival every single year. And I was just young and dumb. And I got to tell you, I have no idea why I thought, I could own my own business. I don't know where that came from, but I felt passionately that I wanted to live or die by my own sword. And so I quit my job on a Friday, had a crappy boss, quit my job on a Friday, and I started my event.
You quit your boss.
I quit my boss.
Right.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Started on Monday morning and was working to build that thing, did that for a few years and really built it up into something that was everything I thought I wanted, and started to feel very dissatisfied and wasn't really loving it. And I think in retrospect, it's because It's very hard to work with brides. Like that is just, and I was in LA, so I'm working with brides who are spending $1 million on a wedding, and there's just expectations so I hated it. And I started blogging as a way to kind of have some sort of creative outlet outside of the company that I was running.
At this point, you'd written several nonfiction books.
Well, no. So at this
hadn't.
point, no, I just started blogging.
Okay.
I hadn't even I'd wanted to be an author since I was a little girl. I'm a massive book nerd. I read constantly. And I think most people who write, so I was a blogger, so I was writing every day for the blog. And this is like 2007, 2008. So this is like the golden age of like, people are like, they, raise their hand at a conference and say, I want to be a blogger. What should I do? I'm like, build a time machine and go back to 2007. Like, that's such a jerk answer. But so I was writing every day for the blog, started to dream about writing a book. And at the time, I love fiction. Love it. It's my guilty pleasure. I don't watch TV, but fiction is my thing. And so I was like, well, maybe I could write, a fiction book. And so I wrote what I was reading, which were like, girls in their 20s falling in love in LA, and loved it. Loved it. Still love those books. Had a very small readership, but also it's super interesting. Have you ever read Big Magic by Liz Gilbert?
No.
What?
Is it fiction?
No, it's nonfiction.
No. I only read fiction.
Oh, stop. Are you
It's
kidding?
true. I only read nonfiction.
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction, sorry. I only read nonfiction.
It's nonfiction.
Yeah, no.
What? It's like my second favorite book.
What's it called again?
Big Magic.
Big Magic.
It's on creativity.
Okay.
And one of the things she talks about is how dangerous it is to turn your hobby and the passion of your heart into your job. Like to apply money to the thing that you love so much.
Yep.
So people say like, oh, pursue your, right? But something very interesting, I know I'm jumping off onto a totally different tangent, is I loved those days. I love those days when I had my business that I ran and writing was my hobby. And the irony is, you asked my lit agent, she'd say, I always said to her, Kevin, I never want this to be my job, because there is a beauty in writing in anonymity. Like there's a beauty in creating.
It's freeing.
So freeing. Like I just wrote for myself. I didn't, some people loved it. I found the people who loved it, and me and all 12 of them were so happy with my books. And it was a really interesting shift to go to a place, all of a sudden something goes crazy, and it's such a blessing, don't get me wrong, and it made the company that we have today possible. But then there is an expectation that you keep creating in the same way, which has been super interesting. I leapt all over the place.
No,
but that I started as a blogger, and I told you this earlier. I was a food blogger. It's the only thing I knew how to do. I knew how to make a casserole or a meatloaf. I knew how to get your kids to eat, broccoli. And back then, when I started my blog, we were sitting around a table and it was like, hey, what's the tagline? What is this blog about? And the tagline was then the same as it is today, which is give people the tools to change their life. The thing was, back then, the tools that I had were recipes. That was the only thing I knew how to give you. And I think the only thing I felt courageous enough to try and give you. And then I was a younger mom. I had 2 little boys. They were both, I had 2 and 20 months, which was, don't do that, anybody. That's
My wife
terrible.
did 2 and 18 months.
Oh, that's a terrible choice. But I found myself, I was going to work during the day, and then I would come home to my kids, and I was having really debilitating anxiety. So my staff at the time was maybe 3 or 4 people, and just the pressure of producing, and everyone's got to pay the bills, and there's so much stress. If you're listening to this and you're a small business owner, you understand that the stress on your chest of got to make payroll. I was having really bad anxiety, and I managed it by drinking. So I would come home every day and I'd have a glass of wine, and that would really help calm me down. And then I felt like I could be a calm and present mom because I had had my wine. And then after a little while, I needed a glass and a half, and then I needed 2, and then I needed more. And then I was waking up every single day with a hangover, which is, still to this day, I feel shame in my heart about that. Like waking up with a hangover and you have 2 little kids. And the saddest part was that if you've ever dealt with anxiety, or if anyone listening knows, it still breaks through. You still have anxiety attacks. It wasn't going away. And I don't know what the sort of click for me was, but I wanted to change and I didn't know how. And I started asking around. I went and met with a therapist, and the first instinct was, well, we could give you medicine. We can give you medicine and that'll get rid of your anxiety. And I am so for medicine. If you need to take medication, if that helps you, I'm like such a supporter of it. But in the town that I grew up in and the family I grew up in, there was a lot of abuse of prescription medication, and it scared me. And I was like, I really don't want this. And so I thought, I wonder if there's a way to deal with my anxiety without that. And so I started researching. I'd never in my life, now I would say I was going on a personal development journey, but I didn't even have the language for that. I just thought, is there some way? And I had built my business, truly swear, I have built my business through Google. Like anything I don't know how to do, anything. I just go to Google and I'm like, how to do digital marketing, how to do a Facebook ad, like everything I know. And I was like, man, I wonder if you could apply how you approach business to this anxiety. Right. And so I started Googling, which sounds so dumb, but I just didn't, right? And so here's a list of books, and here's what your diet should be, and you need an exercise, and so I did a crap ton of therapy, and I took up running, and I changed, I stopped having 17 shots of espresso a day and all of these things. And I fully managed my anxiety. So I got out ahead of it instead of being on the defense. And it took, 6 months to really get to a place where I felt like I had a hold of my life again. And it was like, blinders coming off your eyes. Like, oh my gosh, if I could do this with anxiety, what else could I do this with? Could I treat my health this way? Could I work on my marriage this way? Could I be a better mama? Could I be a better leader? And so I went on this crazy journey, like, gosh, give me all the information. And then as I got the information, now I had new tools to give her meaning my audience. Yeah. So I just started sharing everything that I was learning. I really think, I just take what I am learning and sort of disseminate it and go, hey guys, here's what might work for you. And that has become my career.
I think our guests listening today, no doubt can see themselves in your journey, in some part of your journey. That I think is one of your biggest gifts, is that, Rachel, you have intentionally made vulnerability one of your brands. You and I have only two things in common. One, we're parents, and two, we both wrote a book where we kind of shared our vulnerabilities. When I read Girl, Wash Your Face, and by the way, you're very deliberate around who your audience is. Yeah. Yeah, we remind our listeners who you think the Hollis Company and your brand, who's your client? Well,
so we jokingly say, like, if you have boobs, sorry, I don't know if that's appropriate for this podcast. But it's women. Yes. So if you had to pinpoint it right in the middle, I would say a woman in her mid-30s. Yeah. Because that just sort of is the highest saturation. But I have little girls who are 9 years old who come to book signings, and I have women who are 90. So it really is just women, but we are very intentional in the language that we use. Right. I always am speaking about her. We're very mindful of who she is. And we are, if there is a culture here, it is an obsession with how do we serve her. I think because I grew up in the blogging space, and blogging was essentially create content. There wasn't a way to monetize blogging. When we start, none of us started thinking that we were going to make money. We were like, let's just create content for other people. And so we really, to this day, that is the soul of this business.
It was an art, and it was also a gift to people.
Yeah. Just keep serving your audience, and they will, Girl, Wash Your Face. I am speaking to the questions they asked most often, but I also think part of the success of that book was they were like, you have been showing up for us for a decade, and I never had anything to sell them. And finally, I was like, hey, guys, I have a product. And they were like, we got you, girl.
What's your product?
Well, this book.
Right. Well, but the Hollis Company has a broad range now. Talk a bit about how you've been able to build intentionally a business service, if you will, around the interest in this book.
Yeah. So we have 4 things that you can buy from us. And it started really with this book. So this book happened, and around the same time I was writing it, or maybe it had just come out.
And just to remind our listener and watcher, this was less than 2 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, you went from...
100%. So before that, I was still essentially, so blogging. So I did affiliate marketing. That
Yep.
was how I had a team, and we did great money. But it was a total shift. We had never sold something directly to our customer ever.
Right.
So around the same time I'm writing the book, I don't think it had come out yet. She started asking for an event. They were like, would you do a live event? And I had no idea what in the world that would be. I go to business conferences, or I go to, personal development
And
conferences.
you've been in the event business, if you will.
And I knew how to throw an event. That was
Right.
the only thing I knew. I didn't know what the content would be. So they had started asking. And then around, this has got to be 3 years ago, I had been to several, but I went to a Tony Robbins conference. And I took my team. I was like, it'll be this great. I was on my personal development journey. I'm like, let's go absorb all the wisdom, right? And I'm sitting there, and I loved the experience. Went to UPW. I loved it. And lots of people have lots of opinions about him, but that experience was incredible for me. But I'm sitting there in the audience, and I'm thinking, why are there no women on this stage? Because there weren't. The conference I went to, there was not a single woman on stage, and he had lots of other speakers, but not one of them was a woman. And, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, I'm learning and I'm loving it and I'm getting all the stuff out of it, but some pieces of it just didn't apply to me. I remember them talking about, you got to go all in, and you're going to go back home, and you're going to just hit the ground running. You're going to go hardcore, and you're going to live and be upset, blah, blah. And I'm like, I got to make school lunch.
I know, I got kids.
I am one of the most ambitious people you ever meet in your life. But I'm a mama of 4, and I'm very proud of being a mama of 4. And that is my first priority. I have to do that well. Like, I have been given the gift of these children. I've got to lead them first. And so I just kept thinking, like, what is this experience? This fire you up, personal development. What does this look like for women like me? And I couldn't find it. I went back home, and I'm trying to, where's a conference? It's the only thing I could really find were faith-based conferences, which is beautiful. But I have a community of women of every type of woman. And so I can't create something that's faith-based, because that's alienating to a huge part of my audience who might not have the same faith. Right. And so we just started to talk about what that would look like. Like, what does it look like to create something like this? No idea what we were doing. And we decided, I'm big on, I told you this earlier, just jump, right? Just jump. And then, so I just put down a deposit. Hotel ballroom in Austin,
okay.
Of course, which is so ironic because this was before we lived here. But I put down a deposit, and I had no idea how we'd sell tickets or what we would do. And we threw an event. And it's so precious in my memory. 185 women came, which is a miracle. Yeah. And I went $42,000 in debt on the event because I had no idea how to do an event. And I was afraid to really charge what an event costs because I didn't want to alienate my audience. And I had never charged for anything before. And it was kind of garbage, just like so many parts of it were awful, except this, which was...
Nothing you do is garbage. I've been at your headquarters. Everything here is very deliberate and intentional. I don't like garbage.
But there was something in the air. And I can't explain it except to say that if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. Women, these 185 women, you had never felt that. I had never seen that. It was beautiful and hard, and, like a 10 years of therapy and one day conference, and women from every walk of life, being vulnerable with each other. And we were dancing, we were crying. It was just incredible. And what's so crazy, and he's told this story before, my husband for so many years, huge executive, he was a president at Disney and had this massive career. And for probably a decade, he is my best friend and my biggest cheerleader, but 100% was like, what are you doing? Because many times I'm barely making it. And there were months I'm like, hey babe, I need to borrow money to make payroll. Like, I really struggled financially, but I just knew we were like climbing this mountain. If I could just get to the top, like I just knew I was onto something. I just didn't know how to make money off of it yet. And he comes to the conference to support it. And mind you, he goes in knowing, and he's like finance guy, like he goes in knowing she's lost $42,000 she does not have to produce this thing. And so whatever. And I remember I do the whole morning. I'm teaching on stage all morning, which I'd never done before. And we have our break, our mid-morning break. And he and I are walking back to the hotel room just to have a little break. And he doesn't say anything. And I'm not saying anything because I'm just emotionally exhausted. And we get back to their hotel room and he sits down and he says, I just saw our future.
Wow.
And it was the first time in a decade that he could see what I could see. And we still hadn't made money off of it yet. We still didn't know how this was a real business, but we knew we were onto something. And this summer, that, little engine that could hosted 11,000 women over 2 conferences in June and July. And it's like nothing else in the world.
This is the Rise event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many this year?
So we did 2. We did one in June, which was 3,400.
Yeah.
And we did one in July, which was 7,500.
And a few coming up.
And we have a bunch next year. So
Yeah.
we have business conference for the first time in a couple weeks, and that's 6,000 people.
Yeah.
And then
You have built an event where 6,000 people
Yeah.
have decided to travel in.
yes,
Wow.
yeah,
Rachel, you are, I don't know if you're fearless or not, but I think you're a risk taker.
yes, yeah.
What, from your experience in your massive audience of people who trust you to provide them advice and tools for their life, what have you found are the reasons for women and for that matter for men that prevent us from taking the risk that you have?
I think, one of the questions I get most often is about a fear of failure. There is a massive fear of failure that permeates, and I don't know if this is a more recent thing in the last 5-10 years with the onset of social media, and now you're seeing everyone's highlight reel, and that maybe makes you more fearful. But so many people tell me, like, I'm so afraid of failing. And it wasn't until about a year ago that something clicked for me, and I'm like, no, you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of them watching you fail. This is not you being scared. This is your ego. It's not that you are truly afraid of getting it wrong. It's that if, the girls from high school who are friends with you on Facebook see that you got it wrong, then you'll really be a mess. And I don't know if that's something that men carry. Like I'm in a
Sure.
relationship with these women. And so I can tell you that is something that is deeply entrenched in us, is like, you're supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to get it right. You're supposed to be a good girl. You're supposed to, follow all the things. And I think I'm not fearless, but I really just didn't know that there was any other way to achieve something other than sucking at it for a long time.
Rachel, I don't know if this is true or not, but let me paint a picture for you. I think that a lot of America knows you as girl wash your face. They see your book in the airport, it's everywhere. And I don't know that people I didn't truly appreciate the journey that took you to this book. I mean, this was 15 years
Yes.
of owning small businesses and some failures and some successes, of blogging and blogging and blogging and writing and doing it as a gift, not as a monetary.
Yep.
You've built in the past 18 months, arguably the most recognizable brand in America. Your book has sold the most number of copies, second to only the First Lady of the U.S. What did you do right?
Such a good question. Obsession with her.
Talk about that, because I think that's unique. Something you and a good friend of mine, Seth Godin, have in common. I've had to talk to Seth this morning on a different topic. Is Seth is really passionate with the book, This is Marketing, all around smallest viable market.
Yeah.
He has this obsession around who is the one person that's going to go out and buy your product.
Yes.
And then who is the second person.
Yes.
And then the third person.
Yeah.
You try to boil the ocean.
Yes.
What have you learned about that you've applied?
So part of it is just being in community with your customer or your clients. And I can't overstate this. So many entrepreneurs, small business owners, leaders, get very romantic about what they think it's supposed to be. I remember hearing someone on How I Built This talk about Jenny's ice cream. And she's talking about she was going to be an artisanal ice cream maker. And she gets really excited and she goes out and she was doing these crazy flavors, and the only flavor that anybody wanted was salted caramel. And she was like, I am not selling out. I'm doing crazy flavors. This is my dream. And the business failed. And then she was like, well, I could either serve them and make some freaking salted caramel, or I don't get to have a company. And I think I am not romantic. I am obsessed with what we are trying to do. I want to give her the tools that will help her to change her life. And I believe that the tools that we create at this company, the events that we produce, the podcasts that you get, the books that you can read, the journal that you can use, I believe that we are creating tools that will change your life if you use them, because they're the things that changed my life. But my obsession, like being in community with her, listening, what is she struggling with? What does she need? How do we show up for her? How do we do things the way she wants them done, not the way we want them done? And that means getting our ego out of the way and being humble about this process and admitting when we get it wrong.
So how do you do that? Do you have focus groups or your Q&A?
I mean, literally me, like I'm in social media, like reading the comments.
Yes,
and
you are. You're that connected.
I am that 100%. I think that's my like secret sauce. And we have an incredible customer service team. And I mean, people, I don't know that other companies get the kind of emails that our customer service team gets. Literally like, I'm getting divorced and I don't know how to, and because this is our heart is for her. These women are literally responding, hey, we've gotten this request before. Here are the 6 books that we found that really are best for walking someone through like, I don't know that, you know, Amazon is like, we're obsessed. And even if that means that I think other people would say like, well, you're losing money or that you're wasting time or whatever. But the core of what we do truly is it's like, what my customer, what my client, what my girl wants most in the entire world is to be seen. She wants to be seen. She wants someone to acknowledge her. And that is in everything we do. That's in the events that we throw and hiring 3 times the staff that we need to be on the floor, because I want you to walk in and have someone tell you that your shoes are cute and give you a hug.
Right.
Like that, having more customer service than we need so someone can write you back about your divorce. Like we are obsessed with her. I am obsessed with her. I'm literally in the DMs, in the comments, reading the emails. We all are. And I don't know, like I am creating product for her, and I don't know how to do that if I'm not in community with her.
Do you worry at all as your brand and the enterprise and the business and the customer base exponentiates that you're at risk of losing that secret sauce? And what are you doing to maybe inoculate yourself against that?
I'm sure I know there are people in this world who have schedules that are more insane than mine, but my schedule is insane. And I am so crazy about timing and how things are done and I am so intentional about not losing that piece. There was a time, I will be super truthful, when the book exploded, at first everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. And then there's a tipping point. So all of a sudden it gets so big and it's doing so well that now there's going to be backlash, or now there's going to be negative press
Vitriol
because clickbait and it's interesting to take a negative stance. And when that happened, it was crushing for me, because I had spent so many years just serving. Like I know what my heart is. I was just trying my best. And it's so ironic now I'm more mature, but like the backlash on Girl Wash Your Face was that I was telling women that they could be anything they wanted to be, which I passionately believe to the marrow of my bones, that anyone can be anything if they're willing to work hard and be humble and find a way. Because there's no reason that I should be sitting in this chair right now, except that I believed in myself and I worked my butt off and I kept going.
Is it chapter 6 or 7 about how many no's you got in life?
Oh
right?
my gosh, my favorite word is no. So the backlash that I got was about this. And at the time I wasn't strong enough to carry that. They were like, you're telling people that they can achieve anything, which is setting them up for disappointment, or you don't understand that not everybody has the resources that you have, and I was like, I get it. But it was crushing to me to get negative feedback. And what I did was sort of close in on myself. like, now this doesn't feel safe to do this work. And so I'm going to stop interacting with these people because I was having anxiety attacks again. And I was feeling like if I went onto social, which had always been my place to communicate with my audience, that there was a chance that I was going to run into someone who was being mean. And so I just shut down. And then a mentor of mine, wiser and someone who had been in the industry longer, said, Rachel, you can't lead people if you won't interact with people. Like, you can't do this work if you close yourself off from the people who you're trying to create for. And I really did, I feel like God is up there just like, oh yeah, you want to write a book and tell people that other people's opinions don't matter? We'll give you some real good lessons on that so you can learn to be strong enough to handle it.
I heard once someone say, someone else's opinion of you isn't your business.
Yes,
right?
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it was like I said it, and now, man, life's going to give you the opportunity to really live this out. But it took me. So, do you know Enneagram numbers?
No, but one of your staff just asked me
We're
what my
obsessed.
number was.
We're obsessed
Yes.
with Enneagram here
Yes.
at
I said, I've
Hoko.
heard of ESTJ. I mean, I admire
you
Scribs,
have
but
to do
no.
your Enneagram.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with it.
She told me she was a number one.
Yes, yeah.
That's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, she's a perfectionist.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but I think all companies have their
Yeah,
own things.
of course.
That's
Strengths
one of ours.
finder, right,
Yeah,
whatever.
right. So for me, in Enneagram, you have a main number and then a wing.
Okay.
And my wing is a 4, which is an individualist. And so just sort of in summation, everyone has talked about the vulnerability or the authenticity in my writing. I would never, like, I can't explain, I wouldn't, and I'm not saying that I haven't lied or I haven't fibbed or whatever, but to my core, what you see is what you get. I would never tell you that I'm doing something that I'm not doing. And so I now, at the end of 2018, was really grappling with, man, you told all these people that they shouldn't care about the opinion of someone else, and now you're in your bathroom crying because a stranger on the internet said that they didn't like you. Yeah. And so more than anything, that was I needed that sort of to propel me to now go to this new stage of personal development, which is, how do you really believe so much in yourself and the work that you're doing that when people don't like it, not if, when, that it doesn't matter, because it wasn't about them. It was about, like you said with Seth Godin, if one person, in fact, every time I've probably been on 80 stages in the last 18 months. My prayer every single time before I walk on stage is, Lord, give me one. If there's one person in this audience that hears something I say and it helps them in any way, it was worth the 3 planes I took to get to Oklahoma City today, right? So that was a beautiful journey of, like, you have to be strong enough to handle this or you won't be able to continue to do this work.
So I hate to ask you this, but I'm going to.
Yeah.
Lots of books, big brand, a lot of interesting things you're doing. Girl Wash Your Face, 4 million copies. I can't say it with a straight face because it's not funny. It's just so unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yes.
Because the book is great. It touched a nerve. It spoke to a very clear audience. You followed it up with Girl Stop Apologizing. Yeah. By the way, how important was the cover of your books, do you think, to the marketing?
Very important. And in fact, this is a good one. I think you know your brand, you, me, anybody. You know your brand and you know your audience better than anyone else. And my publisher fought me tooth and nail. They will not like me saying this, but they fought me tooth and nail about me being on the cover. And they put together, you know how they send you all the covers of the books. And I was just like, this is so wrong. And I wanted it to be funny. I really wanted it to be funny. And we sat around I had 4 or 5 staff at the time, and we were like, what would be a funny way to wash your face? And so we were like, oh, what we wanted was, like, could you go somehow take a picture where you're, like, going through a car wash and that, but how could we take a picture washing your face in an interesting way? And every book, every cover I've ever had, even the fiction books, it's me, and it's at my, like, this is on my back porch. Yep. We rented a fire hydrant. One of my best friends is holding a water hose behind it, spraying me in the face. And we had one shot, right? And it was so cold, the water. But I remember they were like, what is this? And we didn't give them multiple options. I was like, this is the cover. And the irony, of course, is that that's what everyone said first was like, oh, you're the one with the cover with the fire hydrant.
Yes.
And it worked because
Yes.
it was sort of disarming.
You're a genius marketing mind. Even off air, I listened to you carefully in your office. You have paid the price to understand your business model, your customer, your brand, your messaging, your purpose, your mission. You're an enormously deliberate person.
Absolutely.
Is that something you learned from someone?
I think that's probably something that's came about in the last 5 or 6 years of I really want to do life well.
Was it a coping strategy from...
No, because I don't think it's something that I've always had. I think that it was sort of like if you're going to operate at this level, meaning this schedule, this team, writing books, going to do Good Morning America, 4 kids, like if you're going to do this, I don't think you should do anything without wanting to do it well. And if you're going to do it well, you have to be very intentional with what you're doing and how and what you're focusing on. And so I think it's something I've learned over time. I don't think if we would go back 8 years, I would not be, I was much more scattered, and I hated the feeling of like, and maybe we've all had these days or years or decades, where you feel like you're working so hard, but you're not having any traction. And so I really started
already fun.
Yeah. And so I started to pay attention to like what truly moves the needle. When you do these things, what really has the most effect? And then just do more of those. I mean, The One Thing by Gary Keller, one of my favorite books, is so just...
Jay Papasan was on my podcast.
Yes, I love him.
That book is so simple.
Yes.
But so profound, The One Thing. Yeah. I feel like I'm having a business coaching session with my therapist,
yes,
which I love.
I'm here
which
for
I love
it.
you.
I'm here for it.
But the fact of the matter is you do have a coaching part of your business. Talk about that, because I was fascinated to hear this.
Yeah. So again, so we only have these 4 products, and they're all a request from her. And the request was, could you coach me? Can I hire you to be a coach? And I'm like, I don't even have time to shave my legs. Like I shaved my legs the first time today in like 2 weeks. I was so proud of myself. As I'm leaving town, my poor husband. But I was like, there is no way I can coach these women one-on-one. That's so stressful. I don't want to do it. And so then I marinate in things a lot. Sometimes I marinate for 10 minutes or, a year and a half, but I really was sitting in this idea of how could I coach her? And so then it became about how can I coach myself sort of once, but have it reach a wider audience. So we launched this year. I do life coaching and business coaching every month. And I'm doing it just for this year, so I have a couple months left.
It's live or recorded on the internet. People can dial in and listen.
So they watch it live, or they can rewatch it later. And we have a whole curriculum that goes with it, because our girl loves homework. She loves the homework. She loves to fill something out. She loves a PDF that she can print. Like, we have this down to a science. And so I did it this year. My last one will be in December, and then my husband starts in January. And what's really powerful...
He's going to be coaching her as well.
Yes. And what's super powerful is that I am growth mindset. Like I'm very like anything can happen. And he is recovering closed mindset, not self-motivated.
Carol Dweck's book, you've read it, Mindset?
Yes, of course. That was huge for him. But so he's now doing the same kind of coaching, but from the perspective of someone who's not motivated the way I am.
Wow.
Because literally people are like, how do you motivate yourself? And I'm like, I don't know what you're asking me. I legitimately got out of bed at 3 a.m. this morning because I was just like, it's a day, it's Monday, we're going to hang out with Scott. Like I burst out of bed ready to take the world on, and Dave's like, what is wrong with you? So he'll offer a different perspective.
Rachel Hollis, it is such an honor to be here. I feel like I need to pinch myself. I'm with Rachel Hollis, who is the best-selling author of Girl Wash Your Face, Girl Stop Apologizing, the founder with her husband of the Hollis Companies here in Austin. I've been with their group today. It is the culture here is palpable. It's positive.
Yes.
You're energy
it's a core
infusers.
value.
Yeah, you
Positivity.
are. You're just adding value everywhere you go.
I hope so.
What's next?
just total world domination is no.
You're headed out of town today.
Yeah, headed
Someone's going to feed your kids dinner.
Yes, yeah, their dad will handle that. The probably the biggest thing coming for us is we're launching our Start Today journal, which is it's one of our 4 products. Yep. We're launching in Target at the end of December, just in time for New Year's. So we're really excited. That was 2 years of me emailing and no one responding, and then finally someone responding and pitching it, and that's a huge deal for us. So that's yeah. I'm
going to close on this sort of unbridled resilience you have. I loved the chapter about how many no's you've gotten.
Yeah.
I want to end this just in the next minute or two with you talking about how people should cope with the volume of no and the power of just persevering through it and making it happen when you know it should happen.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So the best thing that I can say on this topic is you need to anticipate no. The no's are throwing you off because you think you're going to get a yes. And I never thought I was going to, still to this day, if someone says yes, I'm like, for real? Whoa, that's crazy. So anticipate the no's. And in fact, I think when I was a younger entrepreneur, it was really powerful for me to just do the math. You're going to have to reach out to 100 people to get 10 clients. So what does it look like for you to reach out to 500 people this week? Because then you have a chance of getting 50. Wow. That was how I did the math. I just anticipated no. And frankly, get over yourself. Why do you think that you're going to be the precious, perfect, you're going to get it the first time? If you haven't read Stop Apologizing, but there's a whole thing about this. If you were a secret childhood phenom, we would know it by now.
I love your points around how you in the beginning of Grow Wash Your Face, you talked about your celebrity connections as a child.
Yes,
and you take on 2 profiles.
Yes.
You're like, yeah, that wasn't me. That was Kim Kardashian.
Yes. I didn't have any connections. I don't come from money. I don't, I cannot overstate this enough. And in fact, being an entrepreneur, we talked about this earlier, is the thing I'm most passionate about in the whole world. I am so excited about Business Conference I could pee my pants because I love others.
And you might, according to your book.
Yeah, I might. There's a very good chance. But it's so hard. It's so hard to grow a company and scale it. It's so lonely. There are very rarely other people who understand what you're walking through. And I just cannot overstate enough how much, honestly, a hard childhood and a toxic, environment and all of those things prepared me for entrepreneurship because I just thought life was hard. I was super optimistic. I was excited, but I just always thought it was going to be hard. And so it didn't throw me off. I got knocked down at why am I here? Why am I successful and other people who've tried to do the same thing or be the same thing haven't? Because I stand back up. I just keep standing back up again and again. And I'm like, I don't care who you are. I will outlast you. I will outwork you. I will outlast you because I will keep showing up because I don't care if I look foolish. I don't care if I try and fail. Oh my gosh, I've done it a million times. Luckily, I've been in business long enough that I don't make any financial mistake that would truly hurt us. I just, honestly, it really is your willingness to stand back up and keep going. Because, the road gets a lot more, the road is a lot emptier the further down it you go. And just statistically, if you'd just stay in the race, you'd eventually start to get, right? So, gosh, I desperately believe that anybody listening to this or watching this, anybody can achieve anything if they are willing to work hard and keep going.
Rachel Hollis, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
What an honor to be in your presence with your team today.
I agree.
Delighted to be with you. Thanks for listening. This is no question my favorite of all of the On Leadership interviews. Rachel Hollis, such a delight to be with you, and we'll see you back here next week for a new guest on leadership. Thanks for joining.